Here to set me straight about this is Donald Trump. Oh, I'm sorry. I confuse you with him because you're both tall and blonde and obnoxious sometimes and say rude things.
First in the hearts of the people.
How does the left lie about immigration?
Well, the original lie was the 1965 Immigration Act, pushed by Teddy Kennedy, supported by Bobby Kennedy and Dean Rusk and the Washington Post, and all of them swore up and down this immigration law will not change the basic demographics of America. The same countries that have traditionally populated America will continue to populate it. The demographics will not change. That turned out to be a massive, enormous lie, but now if anyone calls them on it, it's racist.
Clearly the demographics changed, but not that much.
Oh, yes, that much. From the beginning of America until 1970, the country was always about 80 to 90% white, 10 to 20% black. That's what America was.
And you want to keep it that way?
I think the American people should have been, exactly, that's what they say now. I think the American people should have been asked about it. But no, they were lied to, and now if you say, hey, you guys lied to us, the answer is you're racist. Really what is happening is America is being transformed into Latin America, particularly Mexico. More than a third of all legal immigrants are from Mexico. At least 60, 70% of illegal immigrants are from Mexico. Can you ask the American people, hey, would you guys prefer to be living in Mexico? Let's change our country. No country in world history has transformed itself into another country like this, and it was done without checking with the American people and, in fact, directly, specifically, knowingly lying to the American people.
How many of you agree with her on this? A few. Okay.
They're embarrassed. They don't want to be called racists. That's the trick. Let's just change the population and then accuse anyone who disagrees with what we've done to the country, call them racist. But I noticed none of you immigrated to Mexico. So I'm thinking that a lot more of you agree with me than are claiming to right now for fear of being called racist. In fact, Mexican immigrants didn't stay there. They didn't immigrate to Honduras.
No, because we're a
China didn't immigrate to
country. They
wanted to come to the country that is or was America. If this continues, it is not going to be America.
Why isn't it America if there are more people from Latin America and from Asia?
Because these are very, very different cultures. Very different cultures. What determines the least corrupt countries is number of years of British rule and Protestantism. If you were to ask Anne, I'd say you want a country run by either WASPs or Ashkenazi Jews, but I haven't done the studies the Harvard guys have done. Americans overwhelmingly say they want less immigration, not more.
And what's the problem? Switzerland, Australia, they have twice as many immigrants per capita as we have.
Switzerland, you have to be there 3 generations before you can become a citizen. I think that's a fine idea.
27% of the country is made up of immigrants. It's 13% in the United States.
I'm confident they are not taking more immigrants from Nigeria than England as America is.
Since you bring up Nigeria...
I don't believe the stat you're about to give.
That Nigerians are more likely to work than native-born Americans? Nigerians who come here?
Yeah, no,
higher percentage?
Allegedly
also
higher
from Ghana?
Educated.
Twice.
No, I've gotten too many requests to contribute to the Nigerian prince or fill out a credit card to believe any of their statistics.
That's a scam. That's different from actual Nigerians coming here.
Where do you think this comes from? It's self-reports.
They are not twice as likely to get a college degree as Americans.
I do not believe it.
I think she's a lot smarter than presidential candidate Lindsey Graham, but when it comes to immigration, I think she's wrong and Graham is right.
I think most are hardworking people that come from poor and corrupt countries to make a better life.
They are, and that's a good thing.
So what? Good for them. Very admirable. Is it good for America?
On balance, I would say yes.
Well, that's the question that should be asked, not that they're hardworking or admirable people.
Not that you have all the answers, but what do you think? Are they on balance good for America?
This is so not a question to be polling people on.
Hands up? Yes? No?
Okay, now you're annoying me even more than the polls do. All we ever hear is diversity is a strength, diversity is a strength. We're a nation of immigrants. These are lies. You never get to hear the other side. Look, 70%, more than 70% of illegal immigrants are accepting government assistance.
That's not true.
It's absolutely true. So maybe before polling people, you should have the facts.
If they're not eligible for food stamps.
Yes, they are. They're eligible for all kinds of government assistance. You're completely wrong.
For some, their children get educated. They get hospital emergency room treatment.
And I think you're wrong about food stamps, and they get health care. They often get housing
They don't get
assistance.
welfare. They don't get Section 8
No, they don't
housing.
get one form of welfare. People who are poor and coming from dysfunctional cultures, from corrupt cultures, who are used to being bossed around, are not going to be, working harder than Americans and less likely to accept government assistance. And they are driving down low-wage workers. Income inequality is through the roof. They aren't taking your job. They're probably not taking any of your jobs, but they are taking jobs of people at the bottom of the income ladder, and they're our fellow Americans.
Doing jobs Americans often don't want to do.
They don't want to do them free. They don't want to do them for $3 an hour.
Or it's illegal to do it for $3.
No, I want to
these
bring in
days.
more people to compete with you for your job. No, but that's
Bring 'em
not
in.
what. Oh, no. That's not what happens. That's not our immigration policy. So you can be macho and say that, but that's not what's happening.
Fair criticism, but when you talk about the contribution, this is from the CBO. More immigrants would lower the deficit. And
That's nonsense.
I mean, they pay into the Social Security
they
system,
don't.
but they often don't take it out, especially if they're illegal.
Yes.
The National Research Council, the typical immigrant imposes a net fiscal cost of $3,000. That's what you're talking about. But the descendants of the immigrant have a positive contribution of $83,000.
No. This is absolutely ludicrous.
The National
They can
Research
state
Council, they're smarter than you.
No, they aren't. They're liars. They're bigger liars.
But what about all the stuff we gain? I mean, Google, IKEA, YouTube, bicycles, blow dryers, basketball, football, shopping malls.
We used to get the creme de la creme. That isn't our immigration policy anymore. Now it's bring in cheap labor to drive down the poorest Americans' wages and block vote for the Democrats, which is working like a charm for both those groups. And the other ones you mentioned, these are the same groups that are mentioned over and over again. Okay, we got one from Russia, a few from Germany, and a few from Britain. If that's what we want, then let's get that. Let's not be bringing in 1 million immigrants from Mexico every year. Where
about
is the
from India?
Mexican Google?
How
Yeah,
about the
what's their-
computer programmer from India?
Yeah, that turns out to be another scam, this H-1B visa. They aren't inventing some great companies. They aren't starting Netscape. What they're doing is standard computer programming work. The reason they are
That's
desirable...
useful. That's great.
No, what is useful is to the employer, they can't switch jobs. They are indentured servants, something this country got rid of 100 years ago.
I think we should let more people in legally, and there'd be less sneaking in.
Well, but it depends
Work
who you're
permits.
letting in.
People
I
who
want
want to
in...
work.
No. You can't play both
But
ways
already
here.
the rules are
No. When we're
stacked.
talking about how fabulous the immigrants are, suddenly I hear about Google and PayPal. But now when we're talking about admitting them, you want the guy to do your landscaping. Fine, admit the ones who are going
to come in. You're saying things that Americans just don't say in polite company.
Well, yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Because the reason Americans are sensitive and your audience are such scaredy cats of being called racist, sorry, but you are you? Is the reason we are sensitive to the race issue is because of how black Americans were treated. It's because of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, both by Democrats, I might add. Someone who's never set foot in this country, we don't owe anything to. Black Americans have a very specific history and rights and privileges in this country because of what they have been through. They can complain about racism. If you're not an American black, then just shut up.
I say we have a good life here, and we can bring more people in from everywhere.
As they compete with you. But they're not.
All right, let's go back to U.S. politics with a guest who has gained considerable notoriety and over 1.3 million Twitter followers by speaking her mind without borders, except maybe on matters of walls and immigrations. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter joins us from New York City. And we're such a contrast up here. We're opening our doors to Syrian refugees and other Middle East refugees. The president you support is banning or pausing immigration and refugee arrivals. What do you see as the effect of these sort of twin solitudes on the relations between Trump and Trudeau in the longer term? Is there going to be a border price to be paid?
Well, you got a lot of catching up to do in Canada. I mean, Canadian immigration policy for decades has been more like what Trump is suggesting, and that is looking at immigration as any other government policy. What's good for the people who already live there? For 50 years, America has been taking the poorest of the poor, the most backward, dysfunctional cultures, and a lot of what got Trump elected was people saying, okay, that's enough. America needs a little me time now. We have our own veterans, our own elderly, our own poor people. In fact, our own immigrants who came in the last decade and the decade before that and the decade before that, which is why the Trump administration and everyone else keeps referring to it as a pause. This isn't hatred for the rest of the world. It's having a pause to take care of the people who are already here.
Okay, but what's the conservative view down there of Canada? We have, our prime minister's tweeted about us being open arms to refugees after the president's pause in immigration. Is that going to cause us trouble, do you think?
Well, looking at what happened to America for the last 50 years and what's happening in Western Europe right now, I might say it would cause some trouble, but you got about 5 decades of total open borders to very different cultures from your own before you're going to be any place where America is, because that's what we've been doing for 50 years now.
I would beg. We have had an awful lot of immigration over many decades here, Ann, but let's talk a little bit about...
Nothing like ours.
Well, we brought more Syrian refugees in last year than the United States did, so we're pretty immigration open, and certainly
and for 50
boat
years,
people and...
Yeah, no, you took about 200 Hmong, we took millions. For 50 years, we've been taking more than 1 million immigrants a year, 90% from the third world. You guys got a lot of catching up to do. If I were a Canadian, I wouldn't say that was one of America's best policies. I'm not recommending you emulate it, but I'm just saying, this sudden rush under Trudeau, you're still way behind us.
I'm curious what you thought about Donald Trump today's call to the Australia Prime Minister. There's talk about this refugee transfer agreement continuing. Republican John McCain rode to the rescue to try and calm it down after this phone hang-up. Does your president, in some ways, need a lesson in diplomacy when a Five Eyes ally is on the line?
Well, I'm waiting to see what the real story is on that. I keep getting one version from the media, and then 12 hours later, oh, that didn't happen at all. I mean, we just got it with the Russian sanctions. So I haven't seen confirmation, maybe it's coming across the transom now, from either the Australian Prime Minister or Trump, that there was any hanging up. But as for the policy being discussed, again, Australia takes these quote, refugees, i.e. people who want to come to a first world country and live off its taxpayers. Americans, a big part of the election was saying, no, we want to take care of our own. And we're not talking about people. I mean, as I wrote in my column this week, there are a lot of misnomers in this refugee business. Among them, the idea that we're taking in people who are fleeing the modern equivalent of the Holocaust. No, I mean, even in the New York Times examples of their most sympathetic cases, we had an Iraqi with respiratory problems and diabetes who was returning from Iraq after fulfilling his duties as a provincial leader over there. They're not fleeing something. They're coming here because they get free health care, free food, free housing, which is fine. We're a generous nation. We've been more than generous, but we're about at the point of saying we gave at the office.
Okay, but you're talking to Australia, a very strong ally of the United States, a member of the Five Eyes security umbrella, and yet your president hangs up on the guy because he wants to keep an agreement going. Isn't that diplomatically toxic?
Well, for one thing, I'm not believing that he hung up yet. As I say, I suspect that is fake news. I love Australia. I love Canada. I love Britain. I still don't want to be taking more than 1,000 poor people whom we have no responsibility to. I mean, what this immigration scam always runs on is, well, for one thing, American and Canadians, big-heartedness, but particularly in America, we're supposed to treat foreigners as if they're American blacks. Well, no, we have a special relationship with African Americans in this country because of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. What did we do to the rest of the world? We don't owe them. And yet they show up with a lot of needs and a lot of grievances, and this has been going on a very long time. We just need a little break for a while. Otherwise, there's going to be no lifeboat to put people on.
Do you think this is temporary, or do you think this could be permanent in some cases?
No, I think it's temporary, though my idea of temporary, what I would like it to be, maybe a little longer than yours. But we need to assimilate the ones already here. We need to dust off the books. We need to figure out serious vetting procedures. And also, not only vetting for, is this person likely to shoot up the San Bernardino Community Center, but vetting in terms of, should we really be moving these people out of their country? I mean, you can also hurt other countries around the world by taking, the people that they need to build the country back up again. We want genuine refugees. We want to make sure it wouldn't be better to help them where they are, which we do a lot and we can keep doing. But when they insist on coming here and signing up for Social Security, when half of my party is out there saying we have to reform entitlements, i.e. raise the retirement age, cut benefits. No, how about raise American benefits and let us retire earlier and stop taking in the poor of the world?
You write in various news media. You have a column. Our prime minister just the other day publicly demanded Fox News issue a correction after it tweeted that a shooter in a Quebec City mosque was of Moroccan origin when he was a white university student. They tried twice to get this corrected. What's your reaction to what was done? Should Fox not have been a lot quicker in pulling that erroneous tweet down?
Well, I have absolutely nothing to do with Fox. I don't even follow them on Twitter, so I was unaware of that tweet. But, yeah, of course, incorrect tweets should be corrected.
Okay. Last question. The Donald Trump we've seen in the first 2 weeks, is this the Donald Trump we're going to see for the next 4 years?
Oh, I hope so. It's like Christmas every day. The only problem is, and he warned us about this, is it's getting exhausting winning so much. Just winning, winning, winning.